What an interesting.
Hi, welcome to the February first virtual reading. And we have three wonderful features today: Irving Feldman, Cynthia Atkins, and Susan Cohen, and an open mic. And I know it's going to be a terrific day, so welcome and let's get started. Our first feature is Irving Feldman. He's the author of 12 books, the first published in 1961, the most recent in 2019. Over that period, he's received many honors for his poetry: the Jewish Book Award, the Guggenheim, and the MacArthur Prize, as well as fellowships from the Academy of American Poets and the Ingram Merrill Foundation. We're pleased to have him in the Verse Virtual community. Take it away, Irving.
Yeah, thank you. First poem I'm going to read is The Ecstasies, and they are two, the ecstasy of immanence and the ecstasy of transcendence, based on a moment in the Divine Comedy where Dante portrays Neptune, the god of the sea, as being startled by the shadow of the Argo, the ship of the Argonauts, passing overhead and signaling the end of the dispensation of the gods and the beginning of the dispensation of man. And so here Neptune is the sea, at one with the sea, and then is startled into consciousness. The ecstasies. He swam, but swam in place. The place was his, the whole of it, all the sea, and he itself and sway, storming or still and never still. Ecstatic platitude of the sea dazzle and reaches, the dark reverie downward, dreaming itself toward a fluent point, dispersed in 1,000 silvery centers, bubbles lofting and kissing themselves into nothingness, the spray lifted and blown, expatiating in broken syllables. And he held close by the dream of the sea, a wonder of water where he moved and reached the light, saw the transparency, always light moving, the clear ecstasy, and splashed but couldn't speak, having no words in the imageless sea. Then started, the little blindness of the marvelous Argo's opacity pierced Neptune's brow and wavered into sound. The image sang and sang inside his coursing bones the inconceivable commonplaces, sky, fire, star, and offered him to all the openness. The following poem, a good bit longer, is Ever After. And its theme is how telling events is fundamental to events. That is, no event is complete until it has been recounted. So that storytelling is not sort of an epiphenomenon, but a fundamental part of the phenomenon. What I did was make up a kind of portmanteau fairy tale for the life of the heroine, and then she gets to tell it. Ever After. The beginning was all a puzzlement. The small mouth in the sand, its dark trickle, pain she wanted to run from and couldn't. Then a fiery thistle of fingers pointed or waggled or beckoned or prodded or said, "Pay attention." Her eyes, bright new, were coined for that. She kept still and looked. However hard to know what was a sign, or just herself idling beside the road? And did it mean her, whoever she was? Still, she went on getting the knack of it. And little by large, everything opened up. The signs leading onward to other signs, the riddles rearing in her path like stiles, too high to jump, but easy to slip under. And misplaced whatever had to be found again, and followed every misdirection until it came true, and ran needless errands so whatever else had to happen could. So the white horse who came to her in the wood would come to her saddled and carrying a king, and believed unbelievable witches and little wizards her body sensed were kin. And by subtle experiment and profound meditation, discovered her powers and the power of her prince-making kiss, too extraordinary almost to use. And so it was so after all, and all that often diverting foolery had led somehow to a state figured in the stars. Every night she saw a kingdom go to sleep, and gleaming shoe buckle to sparkling diadem rose and possessed the heavens. And saw from the height of her life, she had lived a story, had, as though enchanted, obeyed the dumb talk gesturing in her limbs, while she, her passionate hunger for mysteries, nothing that merely happened could sate, had wagered herself against everything, demanding always, and now, what happens now? And now? And now she was telling the story, an old woman talking to children. Words came to her so perfectly at the pace of things, they seemed not to move at all. And now the odd details of her journey grew lucid. The wilderness at home in itself made sense. And telling it again made the same sense again, made it deeper, gave it pleasure. The water came up in the bucket clearer from a cooler, stiller depth of the well. And where the bucket knocked the well curb, the wood buffed itself clean on the stone until her life lay clear in the grain. She touched it, beautiful, neutral itself. Ever after was really the afterlife, where she would be telling her life over. No longer checked, exhorted, driven in an agony of forwardness, the fierce horse walks over the tranquil plain, bobbing its nose in an oaken pail. The children reach down to pat its flanks. She is happy, so. And once again, let herself drop until no bigger than a pale thimble in the deep, but bountiful and great when she brought the darkness up on her lips, potable and clear and filling, and touched them so to the children's lips. And gleaming shoe buckle to sparkling diadem rose and by all ways at once kicked free and scattered across the heavens. The following is a poem, is the third part of a three-part poem called Teach Me, Dear Sister. In the three parts, a man beginning as a child meets in order a teacher, that is, he's a 5-year-old being taught by an 8-year-old girl. As a young man, he tries to pick up a girl in a museum and is turned down, but discovers his muse. That is the second part, which is a bronze head of a young woman. And the third part, which I'll read, is the Sibyl or prophetess, who is her own prophecy.
I'm sorry, Irving, before you start,
Yeah,
this reading, the feature reading is only supposed to be 10 minutes each.
where am I?
Oh, you're almost there. So if you have something really short,
Okay,
go ahead with that.
yeah.
I'm very sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
okay, I'll read The Tower, which is part of the fourth part of a four-part poem called Fresh Air. And its subject is, as it says, the social constructions of reality. In the tower, a group of gymnasts build a human tower, one on top of the other, on the beach at Coney Island. And its subject is how the hero constructs reality. The tower, a tower of men, a tongue toward flaming heaven. Now the last one goes up quick, scaling fire to reach the baby in the window of the burning tenement. Everywhere, jealous angels look down. The tower blazes up higher, the faces puff in fury. If we had breath to call him back, his daring that makes the world come true. Arms uplifted, he holds the whole sky open, plucks the radiance from the fire, the baby now from the skies, never. Oh, we gasp. Ah, we breathe out. Just as quick, the tower tumbles apart, leaping every which way down. Their yelp sends them crashing off, shin and thigh to slaughter waves. And we, set free, have walked away on the sand's radiant reaches. Now the little kids go rushing after and smack up geysers, shouting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Our next feature is Cynthia Atkins. She is the author of Psyche's Weathers, In the Event of Full Disclosures, and Still Life with God, as well as a collaborative chapbook from Harper Editions. Her work has appeared in many journals. I won't read all of them, a lot of good ones that you know. Formerly, Atkins worked as assistant director for the Poetry Society of America and has taught English and creative writing, most recently at Blue Ridge Community College. She's an interviews editor for American Micro Reviews and Interviews, and earned her MFA from Columbia University and has earned fellowships and prizes from Breadloaf Writers Conference, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, The Writer's Voice, and Writers at Work. Atkins lives on the Maury River of Rockbridge County, Virginia, with artist Philip Welsh and their family. She has a website, and I'll put that in while she's reading. And Irving, if you'd like to put any of your books into the chat for people to look into, go ahead and do that. You're muted. Still muted.
Am I muted?
No. It's
Oh,
okay.
I'm not.
How
No.
do I do
Can you
that?
guys hear me?
Just a second. Irving, were you trying to?
I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead and put any of your books or whatever into the chat if you would like.
How do I do that?
I'll send you a message. Well, I guess you
Okay.
won't.
Good.
All right, go ahead, Cynthia. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Robbie, for all you do in our lit community, for pulling all this together. I know there's a lot of details and a lot of work, and it's appreciated by me, and I know by this community. So thank you all. Thank you for reading. Absolutely loved your reading, Irving. I've admired both you and Susan for a long time, so it's nice to be here with you. I'm reading a poem right now from my newest full-length collection, Still Life with God, and has a lot of variations on the theme of questioning God and such, as well as I wrote a lot about mental health. And in this third book, the second book was a lot about family. This is kind of about our culture and our mental health. And one of the addictions I feel that we've fallen into, a big black hole, is social media. I feel like it's a pretty big addiction, and it's stolen a lot of other things from us. So, of course, my book came out the day the world closed down, when we needed social media more than ever. And this is kind of an elegy to a poet some of you might know, Susan Elby, who a poet I love and died a few years ago. Rabbit, Rabbit, Susan Elby. When the internet is the loneliest place on the planet, blow by blow, we gave up scents and sunsets to hold our heads in a screen and gawk in our sleep. My blind leading your blind to where the last light is driven to be warehoused. I learned to whisper over graves, to measure the heft of my breath next to the soul that lay in that soil, devoid of breath. When push comes to shove, when enough is more than enough, when your face sees itself snatched by the swarm of names, pell-mell. I'm just parched for a whiff of clean laundry, a bed made from the cheapest smoky scents of its last spent residence, clinging to pastures where the lovesick stargazers go. Yesterday, I mourned a friend whom I've never laid eyes on, never heard the bricks in her voice or saw her mouth, a gaudy brothel of accents, straight out of the Bronx by way of Chicago, my birth town. I was born to know that train whistles record the distance of our loneliness. I drifted to sleep smelling the pepper spray my parents shot at each other in the front seat. It was our own garden on the highway, under the Magicist sign, where I could cry all night long in the damp arms of strangers. Each car holding that piece of self that looks for others, popping out of a hole like a fox, forcing you to see your breath, flick the light switch into the dark classroom in the planetarium of stars. Here's one a brand new one from the book I'm working on now, called it, working title is The Honeymoon of Sorrows. And I'm trying to kind of look at mental health through a different paradigm, as opposed to this is a problem because you're manic depressive. Maybe it's a good thing, and maybe we should learn how to accentuate the goodness of our mental health issues rather than looking at them as illness. So that's where I'm coming from. This is called Dear Happiness. Call it my manic season, but I've come to understand that I'm at my happiest when I'm multitasking. Yep, clean up on aisle 3. I'm at the ready. I'm hanging curtains to the moon. I'm baking bread and dripping candle wax on old bottles of a new self, juggling my flaws like colorful little balls. I'm tending to the minuscule matters, looking for the multi-faceted crime. This is how I sweat to purge the body demons. I'm having a lurid party with all my imaginary friends. Shh, this is a small town. I crossed spotted cows off my list. I held the smell of my father's leather coat, his essence. I played hopscotch like it was the only thing that mattered in the world. I'm finding joy in sadness. Is that okay? I am disbanding all my brand names and codes so that I can grow this extra arm, this extra flabby arm. Call me the goddess of multitasking. I can climb down every rabbit hole. I'm holding the sun like a disco ball in the bipolar ballroom of despair. I can color out of the lines, break all the laws. I can step over every impediment. Let the mirror images of an inner self reflect my little girl, warrior, savior, survivor, do-over, grinning from ear to ear. And I'm going to end with one more poem out of this book from Alexis Roan Fancher and I. We collaborated, got us through the pandemic. It's her 10 photographs and 10 poems from each of us, and it's called Duets. And this poem is an Ars Poetica called Crickets. Crickets. In all these days and years, the only thing I've learned is that a poem needs an engine. Not a newscaster with ski slope hair, but colorful sweaters from old dead ants, penumbra of dust motes, crumpled Kleenex, the frayed edges of gossip. A poem is all about the things that happen in the meantime, while you were airing the pillows, driving a carpool. All you missed staring right at what the future knows it won't tell you. There is a radio dial we can go and listen to all of us breathing together, rubbing our chasm of souls in an all-night diner. A poem needs magic, a bell, a hammer, a noise inside a noise. Never the same thing twice. Only the pathos that comes over a crowd, the sound of night eavesdropping on the day. Listen to the glyphs branches make on a moonlit night. A poem tenders no apologies for bad haircuts. It will howl with all your stray dogs in the alleyways of cigarette butts. A poem needs an engine, not to be sedate as arts and crafts, glue made with water and flour. No, it needs the wheels to spin in the dirt, where someone is kissing for the first time. It needs a wine glass stomped on at a wedding, even if it ends in divorce. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard you. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And thanks for being here. And thanks for reading us your work. Feel free to put publication information into the chat.
Okay.
Our last feature today is Susan Cohen. She's the author of a nonfiction book, 2 poetry chapbooks, and 3 full-length collections. Most recently, Democracy of Fire from Broadstone Books, which was 2022. A former journalist and science writer, she has appeared in many journals, including 32 Poems and others that I won't go into, as well as anthologies of ecological, political, and Jewish poems. In 2021, Arthur She chose her work for the 11th Annual Poetry Award from Terrain, and Mark Doty awarded her the Red Wheelbarrow Prize. She lives in Berkeley, California. Take it away, Susan.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you so much. And what an honor and a pleasure to be reading with these brilliant poets, work that's so brilliant and so lush. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm going to begin with the last poem in Democracy of Fire, my new book, which is, the title actually comes from this poem. And it was written a few fire seasons ago, as we say in California, when our utility company, PG&E, was trying preemptive blackouts because their equipment was starting a lot of fires. Sometimes for as long as a week, they would black the power out in different areas. And we were in a little town in Sonoma County, and we walked at the end of one of these weeks into a kind of dive bar restaurant, and they had a sign offering free food. Fire season with rolling blackouts at the Bodega Bar and Grill. After a week of enforced night, light breaks over the pool table, a clack of cues to crack the silence. All that was perishable is gone into 2 dumpsters out back. New on a whiteboard behind the bar, these offerings: pork belly, salmon, short ribs, butterscotch pudding with or without whipped cream. Also, everything is free for fire survivors, first responders, or anyone who needs it to be. Generosity is a poem tonight, the language of kindness to strangers and gratitude to the volunteers whose red engines screamed from the firehouse next door. No one will argue bumper stickers, wonder who arrived with gun racks or rainbow flags, attack a slogan on someone's sweat-stained cap. Just walking through the warped doorway that never keeps the flies out is a celebration of survival, a free offer, a feast, a toast to the shared citizenship of flesh. Here's to the live and kicking, those with hungers and with thirsts, waitresses, barkeeps, cooks, paying customers or not, praying customers or not, sooty cows in 2 dry hills whose shit sustains the flies. Here's to the frantic flies, to all of us powerless, while flames choose what to burn in this raging democracy of fire. Bright clutter. Because I read about space junk and glimpsed that image of a Tesla mannequin at the wheel as it shot past Mars, today I see my nephew floating in the ocean. He travels as molecules among glittering galaxies of fish, but I see him back inside his skull, mutely mouthing underwater. His small plane plunged to the Pacific years ago, linking what's above with what's below. Currents spun him round for days, food for fish, matter swallowed by black holes. He still drifts between the worlds for me, eternal as a plastic man and occupied with nothing. It's the ocean that stays busy. I forgive the ocean. I love to stare at how stubbornly it moves, except he keeps washing up against me, stuck between forever and never again. Bright clutter. The universe refuses to erase, and no one can retrieve. So scattered throughout the book is a series of very short prose poems, each based on science news stories. I was a science reporter for a while, and all of them have titles that come from science news. Science news. Gene tweak can extend life 500%, but you have to be a worm. If you can learn to love the fist of darkness, let it close around you. No human touch dancing in the rain, light at the end of the tunnel. A simplicity of soil, of foamy loam. Strip down to the basic muscle of survival and let earth with all it brings pass through you. Life extends its linear line. Now, how long is long enough? So I don't have any theme in this book, but I think of it in a general way as moving out into the world. So from the more personal to the broader and planetary world. And this poem's based on a report from the United Nations called Report on the State of the World's Children. They took me to sea in a faulty raft. I couldn't swim, but dead I could float. I came from the wrong tribe. They took me at night over mountains and let go of my hand. I was born at the wrong time. They took me to a place of tents and snow. The heat was fire, and they rationed the flames. Winter entered to sleep with us. Also men harsher than winter. I was brave. Only my dreams cried out. I came from the wrong village. They took me to a camp with tall fences. Cholera could vault. I crossed from a wrong country. Alone I wandered a desert. I slept under a cactus for weeks until crows found me. They took me to jail. I watched a green fly who was allowed to come and go. They pronounced my wrong name. I prayed the wrong way. They took my house and gave me rubble, then told me to go home. I sat day after day and made walls from all that I had. My two arms became mother and father, holding each other and hugging my knees. So thank you.
Susan, I'm sorry, you're kind of out of time right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. That's the hard part of this job as host. But that was brilliant and a wonderful poem to end on, actually.
I was going to end up on something more uplifting, but
That's okay. We'll let the open mic take care of that.
All right. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you. And thank all three of our features for reading their poems today. It was a brilliant combination.
Robbie, you've gone mute.
Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry. Our first person at the open mic is Victoria Toomey, who's been posting a lot of beautiful artwork on her Facebook feed. And it's a pleasure to see. So now we get to hear the spoken stuff.
Okay, so two poems. Okay.
2 poems or 5 minutes, whichever comes first.
Okay. All right. So the first one is Sticky Old Drawer. And both poems are from my forthcoming book of poetry called Glimpse. So this one is Sticky Old Drawer. Memory, sometimes hard to open, like a sticky old wooden drawer, holding a few dry petals, a few slippery hours, delicate as a beige slip. Your father's hat, the aroma of his aftershave, the shoes he wore when he left for good. And even though you'd swear you don't care, that card from your mother where she was able to be kind. Sometimes all that remains is a sentence, a word, a letter, a comma. And the next one is Waiting Embrace. Lying back on a black satin sheet in your sequined gown, stippled courtesan to the alpha and the omega, moons ringing your neck like pearls, iridescent breasts plump as star clusters, dark hair lying long as a light year from one heaven to another, lips the color of Martian soil, arms endless spread open in promise of holy ruin, as if to say, take it slow and don't worry, I am the fated traveler's velvet dream. I have given my forever love to everyone from Eden to Ursa Major. There will be no going back when we embrace in glittered desire, when I burn you down into a single tongue of flame and finally make of you an echo of that one small light.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Our next person at the open mic is Dick Westheimer. Go ahead, Dick.
Hey, oh, I just loved the readings today. I wish each of them had a half hour to read. That was wonderful. So this first one, and Robbie, you'll let me know timing wise. It's just my latest poem, and it's about those covered up bookcases in Duval County, Florida, where they put the craft paper over the bookcases so the kids would not get to the books because they might contain naughty bits. I don't know. This is called The Hidden Books Make Plans. Under the cover of craft paper, the books consort. They talk of their plots and characters, and some blotted out words tell of the kids who wept onto their pages, the others who laughed out loud, and the ones who gaped in awe when a poem turned to elfin dust. There was that tear-stained drawing of a polar bear on an ice floe melting to the sea, and another, a mama doe lost to a hunter's gun. The books suspected that they'd remain undisturbed in hiding for just a short time and visited quickly in their private space. Words and whole pages jumped down from their spines, crossed over the shelves, looked to find camaraderie among the chapters of others' tales, and conspired to thwart the inspectors they heard were bound to take some of them away. So one by one, they found refuge. Two married moms in one book snuck from their bindings to join a group of bears dancing in the woods. A wizard took his wand and went to stay with a little girl trying to find God. Harriet Tubman went underground again, took her deeds to a book of poems. Brother Eagle flew to find a wrinkle in the fabric of time. They each prepared for the day when the craft paper bandage would be torn off and the terrible light from the eyes of the censor selectors burned into them. The words in their books whispered into the dreams of students who'd previously read among their printed lines. They charmed them with knowledge of ancient bards who'd memorized and recited to whomever would listen. The children became like Homer and Sappho and Bilbo and his kind, reciting rhyme and hero tales to each other as they walked to and from school. The parents and teachers gathered round to learn the old ways from the young. The hauled off books found each other again in dumpsters and storage lockers, said hosannas to the new breed of kids who kept their words alive in the dark of their captivity. Their letters, like runes, shimmered on their pages. Do I have time for a short little sonnet, Robbie?
No,
2 minutes.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do that. Very quick one called Silver Lining. I love this late January sky like I love a wart I pick at absently, like skin itching, dry and flaked from the arid air, like this barely heated house, like mud-caked shoes right before I step into the car, like a traffic jam, me listening to the Allman Brothers Band on repeat playing Whipping Post, like an undusted shelf with unread books pushed back askew, like that talk we put off, or at least I did, like bits of food caught in my teeth, and a week of eyes-wide nights, sleepless, like a toothache, like that time right before the wet lip kiss, which stays the fight and promises more. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dick.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jen.
so much.
Appreciate the extra time.
Oh, let's see. I think our next reader is Charles Perrin.
Hello, all. I'm coming to you from lovely Santa Cruz in California, down the road from Jim. Thanks again for doing all this. I've been obsessed with calendars for the last more than a month. So I have two that are calendar related. December 21st message. The continuous cycle of psychological quips and arguments has come full circle, just in time for the solstice aware, neighbors and naysayers alike, to celebrate a reckoning with, a coming to terms with the dictates of hinged calendars. That was on the verge of Christmas. And our next date commemoration is we're going to come up on 3 years of the pandemic and lockdown and all that. So I merged from 2020, recycled and retooled pandemic poems, kind of celebrating what we hope is the sort of end of the whole thing. So pandemic question becomes quarantine cue. All over the land, folks cooperating, doing their part, obeying the orders, staying home, sheltering in place, self-isolating, keeping social distance, hunkering down, avoiding everything that adds up to an activity for each day of the week, and lots of time to think, to put things in perspective. So with all this, I decided it just might be effective to ask if I should feel virtuous because the vodka is distilled with fair trade, certified canola. Still, part two, still, this vast viral event is unfolding, and by order, you're in quarantine. Now you have time on your hands to do so many things that obtain. Brush those teeth over and over, clip those nails with frequency, select the best quarantunes to listen to, YouTube watch endless old cartoons, retrieve ancient letters from the attic, and write back to those you neglected for all those years of loving and lust, decades able to convince you that finally you must. Namaste.
Our next person on the open mic is Mark Petrie, and he comes to us newly out of the hospital, and I hope you're feeling a little better, Mark.
I am feeling a lot better, Robbie. I'm still recovering, but believe me, I'm thankful to be able to read. So the first poem I'm reading is a sonnet called A Moment of Beauty in a Time of Grief. I sense my body, every line, every curve, the pull of muscles, the beating spark of the heart, one finger's movement, the twitch of a nerve that spawns thought, impulses that dart, the flare of an eye that catches the world's fire, slant sun rays illuminating a lark on a green leaf. I read this, the iris passes this moment of beauty in a time of grief. I read this life's finite journey stretching along its path, pushing up a slope. My aching lungs gasp where stronger lungs than mine have failed. I still possess the ears to hear, the brain that can translate the lark's harmonics, a mind to love its song. And this is when I wrote in the hospital, Remembering Some Beauty. It's called Santa Rosa Wilderness, 1987. Patches of last winter's snow linger in June under pines at the trailhead. At the end of a long dirt road, no set trail marked the way through the manzanita, only a self-made path where thorns tore pants and sleeves, slow going until the brush gave way to the desert mesa 400 feet above the canyon floor. I took my lunch, some water, and encounters with the archdruid to a rock at the edge of the ledge in a canyon where Kauai ruins, where people lived 700 years ago, next to a dry desert wash where life-giving water once flowed. On the rock, on the mesa, in the middle of nowhere, I listened to the sound of no noise and read in silence most of the afternoon.
Thanks so much, and continue to heal up.
Thank you,
And
Robbie.
we hope we'll be hearing from you again soon. We actually there are a couple more people on the open. We have room for one more person, but if you don't mind too much, I think I'm going to take that slot. All right. Our next person at the open mic is Mary McCarthy.
Okay, I don't have any introduction to give to these. They have to speak for themselves. First one is called Soup and Bread. Soup and bread, what would you taste like? Something stubborn to the tooth, not succulent, but rich, strong, sustaining, something to chew on for a long time, to keep you going even on the driest desert trek. No sweet gift from heaven, pale and innocuous as manna or thin communion wafers, something more like your mother's chanina, that dark and solid peasant soup that takes both fruit and fresh duck blood to build its full intensity. I'm sure you would be salty, abrasive as raw language on the tongue, the necessary antidote to any liar's sweet confections that melt so quick and leave you sick with too much sugar. You'd taste like wood smoke and firelight, like early morning fog. You'd turn to me like tree leaves lifting their silver undersides to welcome rain. You'd bring the spice to liven any dish, sharp as pepper, warm as nutmeg, so good you don't need much to reach perfection. You are the leaven to my ordinary bread, the one essential that needs no more than warmth and sweet intention to rise and fill and satisfy the oldest ache I know. If you've never seen Chanina, there's quite a story in that itself. And this other one, it's called The Ice Castle. In my 6th grade winter, snowstorms came so close, there was no chance to clear the roads, just enough sunmelt to sheath the trees in ice, grow long rows of icicles from every eave and rooftop's edge, even build a thick carapace of ice around the fire escapes between buildings. Every day I walked down the icy sidewalks to meet Anna, and together we entered the space between buildings, iced over so thick it was, we said, a magic crystal castle, somehow there for us to wonder at, a lovely interruption before and after all the long school hours. We thought it was our secret, ours alone, because we knew it was magical and true. The ice here thicker, clearer, and more solid in this narrow passageway than any other, none even close to ours in its icy splendor. Nights at home seemed warm and safe, with all the world outside blanketed in the hush of thickly falling snow, cocooning us together. The room at times lit with candles when ice had taken down the lines, and we drowsed in the yellow light, wrapped in quilts, listening to the sound of chains on tires, like bells marking the way of cars heading home. Surrounded by so much cold, the weight of winter made our small spaces perfect, like wishes granted before you could dream them up. Until the storm stopped and all the clocks reset themselves. The chains came off, the candles went unlit, and coming home from school, we found our ice castle collapsed in broken ruins at our feet.
Thank you, Mary. Beautiful
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Rosemary, coming to us from where it's summer.
It's yes, coming to you from Peru, and today we actually have summer, and behind me I have put our place in the rainforest so that you get a little glimpse. I'm reading to you from a book that came out in July last year, which is called Whistling in the Dark, and it contains my darker poems, the ones that are fed by myths, fairy tales, and just fears. Waterways. The green girl waited at the pier, hovered around the black pylons, wet and rotting, lashed by the waves, painted in abstracts by sea moss. Fernando pushed out his boat, young, brown, muscular, and carefree. The birds screeched in anticipation of his return. Sea lions pretended not to notice. Nets neatly rolled, ready for an early winter catch. Oil lamp in the bow. She slid into the luncher, undulated, coiled beneath the tackle. Weeks later, they found him washed up on the beach near Turtle Rock, a smile on his blue lips. The next one is Dover to Canterbury. We'll soon pass the spot where I see her every time. Not once has she missed. I started to call her Emma. The rain whips against smeared windows. I strain to peer into the night. Perhaps she had bathed in the arrogance of wealth, the handsomeness of knowing her place. Couldn't have been more than about 25. One day I ask in the pub, drive to the estate. The manor and grounds hidden behind a gnarled leafless overgrowth scale the crumbling wall. An anemic light from a dying autumn moon halos a woman. I follow. Her long hair barely catches the weak light. Her white gown billowed in the breeze, she hovers near the train lines. Sparks spew into thick black. A locomotive riots closer and bucks when brakes screech it to a sudden halt. In glowing white, a woman lies under the unforgiving wheels. I try to rescue her 100 years too late, but she knew that I was watching.
Oh, thank you, Rose.
Thank you for letting me.
Oh, my pleasure. All of our pleasure.
This is a wonderful reading. I'm just so delighted.
Thank you. Our next reader, next to last, is Svango.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Greetings, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Pongo. I'm a spoken word artist who comes from Zimbabwe, currently living in Sierra Leone, and I'll share 2 poems with you today. The first one is a short poem I found on my notebook. Last night. Yeah, this morning. I was awake this morning on Zoom, open mics. So yeah, I found this. You better be militant when it comes to your betterment. Don't let them tell you who you are, be you. Be the love, be the joy, be the change you want to see. It might be true, you know, loose lips sing ships, but be aware that the power of words isn't destruction, but creation. Words create wars that breed destruction. Your vocabulary is the key to your reality. Change that and watch nature rain your dreams to the tiniest detail.
Thank you.
So this.
Oh, go
Yes?
ahead. I wasn't sure you had another one. Okay, go ahead.
This poem is part of this poem is one of the 20 poems that are in my first book that I published last year, Trials. I'll share the link after this. I'm sharing it because it's a poem that talks, since it's Black History Month, it's a poem that talks about a tradition, a ritual I grew up watching that is slowly disappearing. So as a Black person, I felt like I should write about this tradition so that I immortalize this history of Black people before it disappears. And I mean, I'm 25, so in less than 25 years, I've seen something totally disappear. It's amazing how people quickly forget themselves, but that's all right. It's titled The Rain Dance. I hope you enjoy. We all sat around the fireplaces, the tongues of the fire seemingly taunting our hungry-looking faces. We had not left the room, no, none had the nerve, not until the ritual was over. We sat on the floor, cross-legged, frozen, waiting for the first droplet. The ground smelled of the spring had come and gone, but even the trees that hung onto their leaves were grieved to hear them fall to the ground, raising tons of dust that hung above our heads like a friendly ghost come to boast. The rhythm of life got sing to the cries of the bleeding goats. We had drank their blood and ate the flesh of their kin in an effort to keep so glued to skin. The people were quiet, but each whispered in their minds the truth unspeakable. The cross steeple that stood atop the cathedral, seemingly violating the sky, rendered her barren. Gone are the days of the rain dance when the rainmaker through the orifice of the hot springs in Binga disappeared for 7 days and came back with basket loads of harvest maize to tell of a bumper harvest, a gift from the gods of the land. If he came with his hands empty like politicians' promise of food security, the tribe knew that the drums had to beat for the people to clap and the gods to dance until the earth cried tears of rain. We were one with the land, most so gods of the rain. So I pray the tale which goes to this save that let ye starve. No blasphemy, as have none of that nonsense for the starving child whose father works the fields but the rains unfold, whose mother gathers the wood, whose stomach grumbles the Lord's prayer, but all the Lord's are deaf, her shoulders will never carry the unpleasant weight of a scarf as she goes to school. She bends but not a single droplet for her throat to cool. So she learns at school that the globe is getting warm, that Mother Earth never speaks, but she whispers silent cries every time a car turns her to a passive smoker, taking it to cloud 9. But do you know what smoke does to lungs? It will create a hole so big the sun will escape the hands of time and burn us all alive. No rain to cool us down, let alone irrigate the Garden of Eden, long lost to the hands of men. Peace, power to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Spango. Thank you for coming by. I'm going to read the last poem. And if you wanted me to end on something positive, I'm afraid I'm going to frustrate you. This poem was recently published in McQueen's. It's called California and has an epigraph from Allen Ginsberg from his poem America. Are you being sinister, or is this some sort of practical joke? I came all the way out here, and now you're burning. Flypaper freeways twist and curl, vibrating with trucks and cars creeping down the ramps like mourners at a funeral. You uprooted all the native species, replace them with these blighted palm trees, knobby-kneed brown hills heaving with quakes. You used to be so beautiful. Now everything's a housing tract. Old eucalyptus and lemon groves chopped down long ago to build boxes, all the same pre-approved shades of gray or blue. No more life in the tide pools. California, the tents of the homeless line every street, soon to be purged from the pavement like roaches. Once you were a bride, draped with garlands of orange blossoms, bouquets of white egrets. How long will the redwoods send out new shoots? The ocean and the open sky air their lacy lingerie. Tell me, where is there to go now that we have used up this whole earth? Thanks so much for coming. It's great to see all of you. I'm going to turn off the recording, but we can stick around and chat for a little if you'd like.
It was wonderful.
Hey, Robbie, thank you for the cards. I appreciated your support. It was harder than